join us in prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance, please stand. We're happy tonight to have Mike Pittman from Cross Training Ministries on behalf of the Clewiston Ministerial Association to lead us in prayer.
Father, we love you and we praise you, Lord, and we just thank you for today. Lord, we thank you for our community of Clewiston. We thank you for the many blessings that you have given this community and the protection that you have showed us. Lord, I just want to lift up all the city manager and all the directors, and I want to lift up all the commissioners tonight, Lord, and I just pray that you give them wisdom and discernment as they run our city, Lord. I thank you for them. I ask your blessings on their family for their many sacrifices. Lord, I just thank you for our public works and our city crews, Lord. Just last night they were up at 1 a.m. fixing my power, Lord, and I just want you to know how thankful that I am for that, Lord, and that my AC came on. And we just love you, Lord. I pray that specifically for this agenda. I lift it up to you today, Lord, and I just pray the decisions made today will benefit this city and our community. We love you and we praise you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mike. We also have tonight Janet Taylor, and I'll ask Mrs. Taylor to come up front. She would like to speak to the commission.
Yes. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I'd like to say thank you all for having me on such short notice, and I appreciate you letting me come up front so I could get to church to pray for you.
You know, I said I said no. Janet's going to come at the end.
And the reason I'm here tonight is that 35 to 40 years ago, we started doing a senior citizen Christmas dinner, and we've done it from that time up until now. And we do it by donations from the churches and the businesses and all. And what we provide for the senior citizens, we provide them a lunch. We provide them a evening out. We provide them a $10 Walmart card. We provide them gifts. We let them play bingo, and we give them little stipends for paying the bingo. They have fashion shows because they dress and comes out. And I want to thank Commissioner Peterson and her group from the high school, because they come every year to help us out. Well, we do this because some of those senior citizens don't have family. Some of them don't have anybody to spend Christmas with, and this is their one time a year that they get out to meet the other senior citizens. We used to rotate it. We used to have it 1 year in Harlem and 1 year at in Clewiston, and Pastor Hicks used to host it for us at the Methodist Church, and we have had it at the John Boy before. But we've run into a little problem. And all our donations and everything that we get from the business and the churches, we've outgrown the Civic Center. The affair has become so well known to now the senior citizens live for this day. We've outgrown the Civic Center, and we are here now to ask your indulgence to use the John Boy Auditorium to accommodate us so that we can continue to do it. And the reason we're asking is that if we have to pay the fee for it, then we'll have to just go and beg a little more from the businesses to help pay for it. So I'm here at your mercy asking if you would allow us to use the John Boy on the 15th of December, and it's usually start at 12, and we're usually out by 3:30 when we do the cleanup and stuff, so that we can once again host them.
Okay.
Any questions?
Have we verified that date? Is that something that is available?
Yes.
Okay.
Somebody have the paperwork in there.
Okay.
I gave it to. Who's that?
I've got it. It was one of these. You handed it. And
Oh
put
yeah,
it on
I
my
just
desk. I haven't looked at it yet.
we secured the date, and the reason I came now is because I think they want a deposit and stuff up front before that, and I asked her if she would just be patient with me that I could come before the commission and see if they would be willing to work with us for these senior citizens. And it's a diverse group. We have everybody. Some of our main contributors is New Harvest Church, all the churches, and Dr. Carroll and everybody else, First Bank, everybody contribute to them because Commissioner Peters could tell you how the activity runs. So any questions, I'm here to ask your mercy.
I'd like to make a motion that we allow the use of the John Boy and waive the fees.
Okay, I have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you all. Now I'm going and pray for you.
Thank you, Janet.
Well, pray for Julio because he didn't vote no.
You know what? And I really appreciate that because he's the first one I went to.
You want to secure the vote, huh?
Yes, thank you so much.
Okay. Are there any changes? Go ahead.
Any senior citizen here, please come out. You'll never miss another one if you come.
I'll be there.
I'll be there.
Thank you. Any changes to the agenda?
That was my only addition,
Okay.
Mayor.
All right. Okay, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? I have a motion. Second. Motion and a second. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. We have tonight with us our property appraiser, Hendry County property appraiser, Dina Pittman, and she's going to brief us on some issues that might come into play over the next year.
Well, they will, because they're actually on the ballot
Yeah.
in November. Can you hear me?
Yes,
I know that many of you are aware of the Amendments 1 and 2. Amendment 1 is commonly known as the third homestead, and then Amendment 2 is your 10% cap. And I wanted to kind of just brief you on what that means to you as a homeowner and as a business owner, and then just kind of give the commission an idea of the impacts on these decisions. So first of all, the Amendment 1, as I said, is the third homestead. Right now we have, if you have homestead exemption on your property, any homestead or any assessed, it's very tricky. You have market value, assessed value, and then taxable value. So your market value is whatever market does. Then your assessed value is what falls under the 3% cap for homesteaded properties. So as market goes up, your assessed can only increase no more than 3%. And then what it gets applied is the first $25,000 of value is exempt, and then 25 to 50 is taxed, and then 50 to 75,000 in value, assessed value, is exempt. The third homestead, which is Amendment 1, will actually be applied to values of 100,000 to 125. So if you have $110,000 assessed, not market, but assessed value, then you would actually be eligible for $60,000 in homestead. Because the first 25, the second 25, and then 10,000, 1 to 110. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. To me, I feel that it was put on the amendments kind of as legislation helping out the high-end properties. Many properties that are assessed less than $25,000 are obviously exempt from taxation, except for special assessments or special districts, which in the city limits of Clewiston, it's the sewer. The impact that it would have on, I believe, because it'll apply to everything but the school system. So you're going to get the exemption on the city, on the county, and on the hospital. So the impact on one resident that gets all $75,000 of exemption would be around $550, give or take, depending on what millages do, obviously. We did a study just for you on the city limits of Clewiston, and these numbers were astonishing. I kind of went over them with Molly. In Clewiston, there's 1,269 homesteaded properties. Of those 1,269, 544 will benefit at a minimum of $1 all the way up to the total amount of the exemption. So 544 households will be impacted. So less than half. As far as the tax dollars, because I know that's what y'all's concern would be in the commission, it'll impact about $70,000, almost $71,000 in lost revenue. So as a board, it's going to affect you, but as homeowners, it's going to help. I can't tell you how to vote. I can just give you the facts on that. And before I move into Amendment 2, do I have any questions?
That's Amendment 1.
That's Amendment 1, which is known as the third homestead. And I have it here if you want to hear how it's actually written. But vote yes means you're adding that exemption. You vote no means just keep the exemptions as they are.
And the impact on that third exemption, if it does pass, your calculations show would be about $71,000 to the budget.
$70,677 based on the initial 2018 tax roll.
Okay. Okay. All right. Any other questions? Okay. Any from the audience? Okay.
Okay. Amendment 2 is the 10% cap. This applies to your homes, anything that's not homesteaded. So your businesses, your rental properties. What that does is as values go up, market goes up. If you keep that property, it only goes up no more than 10%.
That's rental property too?
Anything non-homestead. Anything non-homestead. As long as that property does not sell or change ownership in any way. So you and I own a property, I bail out, it goes up. Even for the business. For the rentals, if my husband and I own a property, and then he says, you know what, I'm going to just give that property to you, it stays the same. Because the businesses have a little bit of a different impact on the ownerships. So as the property sells, then it'll go back up to market value. What Amendment 2 is stating is that right now that 10% cap has been in place for 10 years. When they voted it in 2008, it was a 10-year run. We're used to it. Nothing's going to change. And as long as it stays in place, the impact from this year was $9,800 in taxes.
What was that again?
$9,800.
Okay.
And that is, again, based on the initial tax roll that was submitted.
That's because it's capped out.
10%.
Right.
And commercial properties, as we know, have not moved a whole lot. This year they did move. Actually, they've been moving over the past couple years. It's kind of hard as an appraiser to say, okay, I got 12 good sales, let's jack it up. You can't do that. You got to look at the percentage of sales. You got to look at the total impacts and what is causing those sales. Because, especially in the business world, there's, a specific person is going to buy that specific property because it's a great place for that specific business. So you got to kind of see it doesn't necessarily going to impact the little laundromat down the road. So, again, it's something that's been in place for 10 years. And your vote yes means to keep it in place for the 10% cap on non-homestead property, and your vote no means take it away. What does that mean? In 2019, it's gone. So January, when we roll over, anything that's capped is going to lose their caps. Like I previously stated, the impact on commercial is not that large. I think this year, I don't have an actual percentage, but I would say probably 75% of the properties actually got that benefit of the 10% cap because the values did increase quite a bit. So it's going to come off. You're going to lose it next year if no. And it'll be an impact of roughly $9,800.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Well, go ahead.
Again, that also plays a role in everything but the school board. So the school board only has, if you notice on your trim notices, you have different taxable values. County gets like seniors, veterans, disability, all that is applied to the county millage. The cities don't adopt that. So the city gets the homesteads and the 3% caps and the additional homestead. School board has 25,000 homestead exemption. That's it. The caps don't apply, and the 10% cap does not apply.
Okay. Okay.
I know it's clear as mud. Philip's looking at me like, that girl's, what is she saying?
The 10% cap has nothing to do with homestead property.
No, sir. It's all non-homesteaded properties.
So an industrial, a commercial property can't go up
In assessed value,
in assessed value, but
more
how
than
much?
10%, as long as the ownership hasn't changed.
I know all about the ownership. You said how much? 3%
No more than
or
10.
10%?
10. Homestead
In
is
what
3 or CPI, and non-homestead is 10%.
Okay.
If you don't have that cap, how much could it go up? Or is there?
I can't answer that because it depends on how long you've owned it, how much deferred you have.
So it's on an individual.
It's on an individual basis. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I can't answer. I mean, if you have a specific concern about your property, look at your trim notice. It'll tell you what it is. If you don't understand it, by all means, call the office. Yeah, and we'll help you with that.
Okay. I know that in talking with Dina that I knew that these could be potential impacts. I mean, it might be that one doesn't pass.
Right.
And it could be that 2 stays in place, but nevertheless, those are things for us to look at the future and what could happen.
Right. And I mean, when you're dealing with the homestead, it's kind of hard to determine exact impact because you might sell your house and then buy another house, but you've got, I'm going to say a bad word, portability that you're bringing with you. So there's really no impact
Right.
because you get to take all that deferred amount with you.
Correct.
So, I started this process 30 years ago. It was 25,000, you're done. You know, now it's like if, only, and, could, maybe, possibly, if.
Right.
So
Jigsaw puzzle.
It is.
Put it all together. Yeah.
it is. But we're always available, our office. So feel free to call. We have some pretty good trained staff.
Yeah.
Most of you deal with Imelda here. She's amazing.
Right.
And if she doesn't know the answer, she'll call and get it.
Yeah, and I know that your website has so much information.
Yes.
If you could just kind of share some of that, because I know you post reports, you update it with information for the general public to be able to go and look at it.
Yeah, you can go on our website. It's henryprop.com or henryprop.org. It'll default you to .com. On that website, you can search either by owner's name, by address. Those are the 2 most common searches. A lot of realtors might use the sales search, and you can just put in like the property use. If you want to say all O100s, which is a single family resident, you can search by location. If you want to just do City of Clewiston, if you want to see what Montura's doing, Flaghole. There's a wealth of information. We have the amendments on there. The values are there. The caps are there. Taxes from last year are there. We're actually updating this week, hopefully. We'll be updating, so all the current information
And
will
your
be
sales
there.
report that you can pull for a year, you can pull them for several months.
Yep. You can select the date range that you want to use. So typically what I do is I go to the GIS map, like when I pull up my property. Let's say I want to pull up my house, and I want to see what sales have happened around it. I go to the map, click on that, and then there's a legend. Scroll down. You can select all sales by year. It's color-coded, so you know which ones are 18, which ones are 17, 16. And it'll highlight the whole map. And then you can just click on each parcel, and it'll tell you what the date was that it sold and how much it sold for. Yes, sir.
Question about the homestead exemption.
Yes, sir.
You said it have a negative impact on the city, $61,000 in tax dollars.
71.
71. If the next year's budget hearings, the city says we can't absorb all that, you can only absorb half of it. There's nothing in this amendment that prevents them from raising the millage
No.
to cover all or part of that shortfall, is there?
No, which they would know that there's a cap on millages. But, yeah.
Thank you.
But no, there's no limitations on that. That's the other thing you have to keep in mind is you're looking at market values, then you're looking at your capped values, and then you're looking at your millage rates. All of those, and then your taxable values, actually play a role in the city budget.
Okay. All right, any other questions or comments? Yes, sir.
That's one thing. It will be hard for us to eat the 71,000. That's just a fact. Something I want to ask you, Dina, and you might not be able to answer me, and then again, I think you can. Is Walmart in the city limits of LaBelle?
No, yes. The new
It was
Walmart in LaBelle? Yes.
Accessed in,
It was
right?
annexed into the city
Annexed.
limits.
All right, it wasn't annexed all the way out.
No,
So,
individual parcel
so
was.
we have, right?
You
The
do.
capability
Yes, sir.
of going out and taking a piece of property and accessing it.
Annexing it in, well, it has,
Annexing it,
yeah,
yeah.
there's some litigation that has to take place ahead of that. Agreements with the property owner, I believe, as well as the city.
And I believe that LaBelle did, it was all a friendly annexation. There was not it was, everybody was in agreement with that.
Right. Because that's one of the,
So the Walmart people were
aware.
aware and
agreed to it.
wanted it.
Yes, it had to do with their water system, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of a catch-22. We'll give you the water if you annex in. Yes, sir. And that's one of the struggles that I know that the city deals with is you're landlocked. Unless you annex Harlem and Hooker's Point and Flaghole, if the U.S. Sugar properties along the dike, if they ever open up and sell, those are in the city limits. But I mean, you got to just start handpicking and annexing because there is value coming, but not necessarily to the county. We got FP&L coming, we've got county, and we've got the airport coming, county. So while your tax bill may intentionally drop, the city millage may not, because the city's not getting those benefits.
All right, Dina, well, you've certainly given us a lot of information, and certainly we appreciate you coming here tonight and sharing all the knowledge that you've accumulated over the years and being in the property appraiser's office and what this impact would have.
I like to say I
on the
started when
future.
I was 2, though.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Just want to clear that up.
Thank you so much for being with us
Okay,
tonight.
you're
We
welcome.
appreciate
Thank
it.
you for having me.
Okay, we have tonight with us Lauren Basaka of the FRWA Utility Asset Management, and she's going to give us a presentation of our wastewater system asset management and fiscal sustainability plan.
Right. Okay.
Thank you, Lauren.
You're welcome. Good evening, everybody. You guys have gone through this before, correct? You've already put one in place. Okay. So this isn't new to you, but there might be some people here that don't really know. So I put a short presentation together just to give you an idea of what it is. Okay. So could you go to the next one? Yeah. So why are we doing this? And I'm just going to kind of read this for everybody, but you can read along. But an active asset management plan is a requirement for participation in the state revolving fund, and that's the program that you borrow money from for your water and your wastewater infrastructure repairs. So the state revolving fund and the asset management and fiscal sustainability program details are identified in Florida administrative codes for water and wastewater. So there's a Clean Water Act and a Drinking Water Act, and both of those are covered in Florida Administrative Code, and so that's where they can be found. The numbers are there for you. And to be accepted for the financing rate, the lowest financing rate, and to be eligible for reimbursement, and this is really important. This is really why you're doing this. You're doing this because you have to do two things. You want to get your lowest interest rate, and you want to have some of that reimbursable, which is the grant portion. In order to get the grant portion, you have to have an asset management and fiscal sustainability plan in place. Okay, so next slide. That's the most important. What is it? It's a systematic process of maintaining your critical assets. It's determining your lowest life cycle costs. It's making sure that your utility is fiscally sound moving forward into the future. So you're going to be projecting 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, and it's a written plan. and it needs to be updated annually. So those are just kind of the bullet points of what actually an asset management plan is. Next one. There's a few components of a plan, very, very basic. You're building all of your assets. You're going to develop a program. You're going to hopefully be developing financial controls. The asset management document is actually what you're going to be using moving forward to make sure that you're fulfilling all the obligations to the utility and to the assets, and to make sure that you're fiscally sound. So, next one. We've collected all of your data with the help of your city and a lot of participation from your city. We've collected the data on the assets, and we've put it into something called Diamond Maps. It's a geographical GIS system. It's cloud-based, and we've put this together in partnership with DEP with Diamond Maps, specifically for small utilities. Next slide, please. These slides are just going to show you what Diamond Maps is, because I think this is the most important, and Lynn and I discussed the next slide. Oh. Yeah. So this is just kind of a snapshot of what Diamond Maps is. Diamond Maps is a computer maintenance management system, CMMS. You hear that a lot. So what you're looking at there is a snapshot. That's actually a water system, and you can see on the left-hand side all those check marks. Those are all the different assets. There's meters and all kinds of things. And then on the right, the big picture, that's actually where all those assets are located. This is not Clewiston, but we have something like this for you already done in Diamond Maps. So, and that's water infrastructure. Next slide. There's sewer manholes, same thing. You know, we go out into the system, we take a little computer and we stand over each asset and we click on it, and that's the location of the asset, and then we upload it into the system, and eventually you're going to have this. Next slide. This just gives you an idea that it's just a slide to explain GPS accuracy. This is within inches, like within a foot. So if I'm standing here, it can be within inches, depending on how the strength of the signal. It could be within inches. So you're not going out in the middle of the night trying to find a meter or a manhole. That you don't have to worry about that. This is accurate to within inches if we have a strong enough signal. Next slide. And it's updated real time, which is very, very cool. So when I'm in the system, say you have 3 people that all are able to put this information into the system, I can be on one corner and all of a sudden an asset will pop up in a map because somebody else is putting one in. So it's real time. So when you make a change, you don't have to worry about, oh gosh, going back to the office and uploading it into the system. It's in there. So everything you do is real time. Next slide. The other benefit of this particular CMMS is you can create work orders in it, which is great. So you don't have to do paper work orders. I used to work for a city here in Florida, and we only had paper work orders. So the guys would come in the morning, grab a bunch of papers, and run out, and then they'd hand them to us, and we'd have to put all that information in, and we'd always be on the phone because no one has handwriting that everybody can read. So we would always be on the phone like, what does this mean? What does this mean? Well, you don't have to do that anymore. If you have this system, everybody can, whoever has access to it, can put this in real time in the system. Or you can have one person doing it and it goes out to the people who need it out in the field. So it's really good. Next slide. Keeping track of your asset life expectancy, that's something that we're doing for you too as we're putting this information in. As we're putting your data into the CMMS, into Diamond Maps, what we do is we put every asset has kind of an age. You know, some things are 25 years, some things are 50 years, some things are 100 years. And so we're putting that information into the system for you. So as we put each of your assets in, we put what that asset would cost to replace. We get that off of, just from different sources, but we know what a meter costs, and we know what, generally what things cost. So we're putting in an asset, we're putting in a cost, and then we're putting in the life expectancy for that asset, and we're coming up with a replacement schedule for you. So, and that's what this does. And it all, as long as you put in the right information, it gives you, information in, information out. Next one. And we call this the best part. It's very inexpensive. It was it was created for the purpose of giving small communities an opportunity to have what larger communities have had for a long time. It's been expensive, and it's complicated to use for the old systems used to be. This is pretty user friendly. I mean, I came on board and I had very little training in it, and it didn't take long to figure out. It didn't take long at all. And we're here to do this for you. I mean, if you guys opt to go this route and use Diamond Maps, because we've already have your stuff in it, we come and we help you, and we train everybody, and hold your hand and walk you through it. So next slide. I think that's pretty much the end. Okay, well, in closing, I think the most important thing about the asset management plan and what DEP really tries to drive home is it's a living document. It needs to change. It's not going to sit on a shelf and be ignored for it to be effective. It needs to be updated annually. It needs to be updated if your staff changes, or if your assets change, if you build something new or you take something out. It should be changed. It should be updated. So it's very, very important to consider it a living document and change it annually at least, and more often than that if there's changes. And you guys all have the plan, I'm assuming, right? So, and in that plan, I just want to be clear that Diamond Maps is a program, a CMMS that we developed with DEP for small cities here in Florida. There are other CMMS programs, and we put a link in there for you that you can look at them and, decide on your own. But, in any event, you need a CMMS in order for the plan to be successful. So, any questions?
I don't have any questions. I know I talked to staff about it. Lynn, is there anything else you'd like to add? Danny, is there anything on this? Okay. All right.
Can this thing be modified or used for streets and sidewalks in the community as well?
Yeah, it can be used for streets and sidewalks. Can't you add any asset, any layer? It goes by layers. So as long as you can GPS point it, you can name it whatever you want. and you could put anything that your engineers have done or your engineering department does can be added to it. You can easily upload shape files to it. If you don't have shape files, then you can convert them, I think, in ArcGIS or something. I don't understand how all that works. I only do shape files into it, but I can actually do the shape files into it, so it's not complicated. But you can just add layers.
So it could be modified.
Yes, you can.
Track the same way you're tracking meters and
If it's
stuff
an
like
asset,
that with sidewalks and streets.
If it's an asset, you can, just like we put pipelines in it. A sidewalk's like a pipeline.
Yes.
So, we put pipelines in it, yes.
So, just go over again exactly what's already in the Diamond Maps for us that you guys have uploaded.
Okay, so you have your, gosh, I wish I had it up here now. You have your manholes in it. You have all your sewer stuff is in there.
Okay.
Yeah, so your, the plant, everything's in it.
Okay. But
All the pipes.
Lift station. Bill Arkansas did it all.
okay. All right. So in adding layers, and then the water lines can go in. And,
Okay. So yeah, absolutely. Your water system, we put them into two separate maps just so that they don't get confused. But yeah, definitely your water system can go in, and that, you can do that. You don't need us to do that, but we can help, or we can, however it works. But yes, your water absolutely should go in there. You should have your water in there.
Okay. All right. Good.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Lorene? All right. Thank you so
All right.
much.
Okay.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
y'all being here with us tonight. Okay. Next item on the agenda is resolution number 2018-45. The commission authorized a loan agreement under the Clean Water State Revolving Loan Program to carry out the phase 1 of the inflow and infiltration program associated with the loan, to be accepted for a financing rate adjustment and to be eligible for reimbursement. An asset management and fiscal sustainability plan must be adopted by ordinance or resolution, and written procedures must be in place to implement the plan. Lorene just went over the Clewiston Wastewater System Asset Management and Fiscal Sustainability Plan that goes that goes hand in hand with what we're discussing here on resolution number 2018-45. It does give us an eligibility for a rate reduction to the SRF financing rate. Before us, we have the resolution number 2018-45, letter from Florida Rural Water Association and the Clewiston Asset Management and Fiscal Sustainability Plan. It's resolution number 2018-45, a resolution of the City of Clewiston, Florida, approving the City of Clewiston Utility Asset Management and Fiscal Sustainability Plan. That is considered AMFS plan, authorizing the city manager to take all actions necessary to effectuate the intent of this resolution, providing for an effective date. There is a recommended motion to approve resolution number 2018-45. So have a motion and a second. Any comments? Any further information? Lynn, is there anything else? Okay. Gary, was there anything else on this?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Resolution number 2018-46 amends resolution number 2012-19 regarding the Municipal Golf Course Advisory Committee. Resolution number 2018-46, the resolution of the City of Clewiston, Florida, amending Section 3 of Resolution number 2012-19 that establishes the Municipal Golf Course Advisory Committee. Al, if you'd like to go over this with us.
Yes, Mayor, this simply removes the line that says no committee member shall serve on any other committee or commission of the city while holding this office. We had a couple new advisory boards members that this would benefit. We thought it was worth removing from the ordinance.
Okay. Is there any comments on this one? Okay. Any other comments or questions on this?
What's the reason from going from 5 to 7 members?
Just increased interest. We had some others wanting to serve.
And these are our volunteers.
And
Yes.
as you spread, you get the people and you spread who they know that we can use to be better at the golf course.
Is there a motion to approve resolution number
I'll so move.
2018-46? Can I have a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion or comments from anyone? Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. I'll turn this over to the city manager. Discussion regarding shutters, storm panels, and storm roll-ups.
Yes, Mayor, in front of you, I apologize. I met with Debbie last week about some recommendations on shutters and what we can do to improve the ordinance, and she emailed it to me at 3:20 on Friday, and for some reason I thought it went to everybody, so I didn't forward it to you, but I did forward it this afternoon. You have a copy in front of you. Are some of the recommendations that, as a staff, we came up with.
Is there any way we can have a workshop on this instead of trying to do this tonight?
And
I know there's a lot more to it than.
I know that we started the discussion, according to Debbie's email, we looked at this, we received a request on April 16th, 2018. I know that they've been reviewing it. I don't have an issue with having a workshop on it, but I agree that or have it on for the next meeting because, as Al mentioned, we just got it this evening. So I don't want to make just shoot from the hip to say this is what we should and shouldn't do. I think we should be discussing it.
Well, I'd like everybody to think about June the 1st and November the 30th. The people leave. Tax day is April the 15th. Am I right?
Mm-hmm.
So April the 14th or April the 10th, they leave. They're gone for April, May, June, July, August, September, October, and they're back. These people like to board up their house, or they have the shutters that are
Permanent shutters.
permanent shutters. And those people have those shutters for a reason. And then we have the people that go north that live here that go to North Carolina for 3 months or so. So those people need to be taken into account on this.
Right.
I mean, we just can't be that rigid.
Right. Well, in April, we asked staff to look at the ordinance, particularly in concerns about winter and summer residential structures, which are empty for the duration of most of the hurricane season, and the need to secure property during the absence. Hurricane shutters up year-round that have not been removed at all. Permanently installed shutters staying closed, and standards to make sure that the shutters that stay on while residents are away, what standard we have for those. Debbie has supplied us with definitions clarifying permanently versus, or the recommendation is to look at the definitions clarifying permanently versus not permanently installed shutter types. Modify 110-530 2A to include verbiage on the time frame. An exemption for permanent storm shutter replacements to extend the allowable time frames, and also to place exceptions from June 1st to November 30th of each calendar year on permanently installed shutters are not permitted to be closed in secured position unless there's a hurricane or tropical storm. Those are all some of the recommendations, and again, that there's different standards for single and multifamily dwellings for fire safety codes. So I get, we received this tonight. There's no way we can make a decision tonight. So another workshop, or have it on the agenda for another meeting, or after November 30th, which is the end of the hurricane season, and we're not sure what we're going to be facing between now and then. We know that enforcement is key, as well as, because we want to have compliance with the codes, but also that in looking at the time frame and in the certain issues of folks who are gone during that time is everything that was been brought up here.
Right,
In April.
and I certainly don't agree with plywood being
Permanent.
there for 6 months.
Right. Okay.
That type thing. But we certainly need to address
Right.
our winter people, our people that go north.
Elderly.
There's about 3 different ways
Sure.
to
There's
do
no
this
doubt.
thing.
I think we've, from April to now, there's plenty of discussions and comments and outreach from city staff to talk to different folks about it. So the recommendation is to have a workshop regarding the shutters. And I know that we have recommendations already from the code enforcement. I'm sure that we'll have some recommendations from the fire marshal in regards to shutter standards under the Florida Fire Code and Building Code requirements, and then, of course, from the attorney. So, Al, if you'll work on setting a date for a workshop for this to be discussed. And we need to look at all the issues, because I believe before, if I'm not mistaken, staff reviewed ordinances from other communities and looked at standards that other communities had, and that was what was presented to the commission. So we continue to look at that. I don't believe we could have workshop before November 30th, but again, it's still hurricane season, and as we've just seen how the impact of a different type of hurricane season, what happens. Nobody was prepared. Everybody knew the hurricane was coming, but the impact of that hurricane was devastating in the Panhandle, and every hurricane season is different. So we do not know what to expect between now and November the 30th.
But I think we're cognizant of that and can keep that at the front of our minds as we do the workshop. And I'd rather do it sooner than later so that it doesn't fall by the wayside.
All right. So if you'll have a recommendation for us. Any preference on that from anybody else? From any comments from the community? Okay. All right. At this time, any person is allowed to speak on any matter that pertains to city business. If you'd like to come forward and state your name for the record.
For the record, my name's Kevin McCarthy. Here to talk, it's coming up on the next part of the agenda because I thought there was going to be you tabled the resolution. Anyway, in the last 4 years, the city's has increased its solid waste disposal budget expense, not the revenue expense, $360,000 or 112%. Lee County has increased the disposal fees by 41% in that same time, which are still lower than they were in 2011. If the other 71% has increased volume, then perhaps it's time to do something different. Florida Statute 403.706 requires a recycling goal of 70% by December 31st of this year. I don't know where we're at in our recycling goal. It also encourages counties and municipalities to form cooperative agreements for implementing recycling programs. In the city of Clewiston, the only recycling bins are at the schools. For every pound that gets recycled, that is a pound the city does not have to pay in disposal fees. So if the city were actual partners in recycling, either through many more recycling bins throughout the city or through recycling carts at individual homes, perhaps you could be having a discussion about a much smaller rate increase. How many recycling tipper carts could you buy with $360,000? Maybe then you could go to 1 day a week for garbage, 1 day a week for recycling, with no increase in equipment or personnel. I would hope the discussion you have is not whether to go up $5.50 or $11, but how can we reduce our expenses, reduce our impact on the environment, and save our residents money. Thank you.
Kevin, don't go sit down yet.
Okay.
Sean,
Yeah.
you want to go up there?
And I think, go ahead. I think
Talk about recycling to me or to the board.
Lee County's issues with the recycling that they've come up against.
The meeting that you just had with Lee County.
The meeting that we just had with Lee County, we were discussing why we didn't get notification for the rate increases before during the time we were working on our budget, so we were better prepared to handle those things. But at the same time, we were wondering why the rates were going up so fast and so high. The Lee County did put out a 5-year study on the rates, and while we were at the meeting, they suggested and encouraged the city to look at that rate increase based on a 3-year run instead of a 5-year run. And those numbers indicated that we're looking at a substantial increase in tipping fees, or what we pay to dump the garbage that we collect on the floor here at the transfer station in town.
Okay. Talk about recycling.
Recycling is one of those things that the city has looked at, talked about, and considered for a long time, and has been slow to get into it, mostly because of the financial aspect of it, what it would cost to put the tippers out at every house in town, and more so what we would do with it after we got it picked up. We would require for some work or some help from the county to be able to handle or accommodate collecting the recycles, and what has happened with it after that. During the past several months, there has been some agreements and documentation discovered by Sherry during some of her due diligence in working on possible rate increases and the justification for or against those things. And we have discovered some documents that indicates that, yes, Hendry County is the authority when it comes to disposal of solid waste across the board in unincorporated and incorporated areas of Hendry County. At the same time, it indicates that there was an agreement signed between the City Commission and Hendry County that the county would be responsible for the recycling programs throughout the county, and that it would include all municipalities or incorporated and unincorporated areas.
Do you remember the date of that agreement?
1989.
To when? And
To when? I don't understand your question, Commissioner.
It
doesn't have. It didn't have an ending date.
Oh.
It didn't have an ending date that I saw or that she saw. Sherry, would you come up and help me with this if there's anything that I'm missing? She's a lot better than me when it comes to numbers and that kind of stuff.
So
Yes, sir.
If I'm gonna make a quick statement, Recycling, it seems like they were discouraging recycling
Right.
because of the.
Well, there was. Whenever we were at this meeting in Fort Myers, we discussed the recycling issue at the same time. And because we had heard there were some other communities that had stopped picking up recycling because they couldn't get rid of it. Lee County Solid Waste Authority did tell us that they had run into a situation where they stopped picking up some recycle for a while because they had no buyers for it. I think China was one of the biggest purchasers.
It's
right
the
now,
metal that's got so cheap to sell, and China was the big buyer.
we didn't get into the discussion as to
And what
which
about
part
the-
of the recycle
and what
was
did
not.
they
It's just they said to stop because they didn't have anybody to purchase the stuff.
Okay. What about the date 2020? What were you told?
When we asked about that, because I did raise it up, because I did say, aren't we under a mandate to have, 80% of the solid waste collected in a recycled situation? Be recycling 80% of the solid waste we collect. And according to what we heard in Fort Myers, they said, well, that's sort of just a goal. It's not really something that they're going to hold us to, especially under the circumstances that we are in the current economical
That the
situation.
recycling is not being able to be sold.
There's
being
a lot of
burned.
things involved.
Well, I think this was a state mandate, though.
That is correct.
And that's who we better get it cleared with. It's not the mandate of us or the mandate of Fort Myers.
I understand. I agree. Yeah.
It's a mandate of the state that 2020 is when you're supposed to be recycling
At least
the 20% or 30% or whatever.
Lee County even indicated that they had started sending what the recyclables that they were picking up through the waste to energy facility.
Right, they were burning it,
Yes, ma'am.
incinerating it.
Correct.
Okay. All right, Sherry, you're standing there. Is there something you wanted to add to the conversation as far as the
Only thing-
budget?
Well, the only thing that I would add about the recyclables, it wasn't so much that they couldn't get rid of it. It had to do with the cleanliness of it, that it costs a lot of money to get it to the degree that it's acceptable. And that's a problem across the board. It's not really a specific, it's not county specific. And so that was really the issue, is that the recyclable program itself isn't as lucrative as it was. And it's basically because when they receive the recyclable, it has to be clean. And they even use the example of a pizza box. When you have a pizza and there's stuff on the pizza box, there's food on the pizza box. So when apparently when you receive recyclables, you have to get it clean. And so that was an example that they used. And the agreement that he spoke of, the recycling, is basically that in 1989, it's an interlocal agreement that basically the city is stating that the county has a responsibility for the recycling program. And also counties have the responsibility to get rid of solid waste. And so that's why the city, that's why we go with the county to get rid of the solid waste, because ultimately it is their responsibility to find the place to get rid of the solid waste. So there are 3 documents that define the relationship or define how we get rid of solid waste. And we're prepared. It's a little premature, but we're going to make sure that you get all 3 of those documents. One of them is the one that we spoke of from 1989, which when you read it at face value, it talks about how we're giving how the county has the responsibility for recycling, but also in there it addresses how it is their responsibility to get rid of the solid waste. And then we also have a document which is the lease for the transfer station. You all know that we have a transfer station here where all of our solid waste is taken, and that's city property. So there's a lease between Hendry and Clewiston that gives the ability for the Lee County to come and have the transfer station there. So there's that document, and then there's also the document, the actual document that's the meat and the potatoes, so to speak, of our solid waste disposal, which is between Hendry County and Lee County. And that's spelled out. It's like about a 26-page document, and it spells out the solid waste disposal and what we do, different landfills that goes into that, and also the touches based on returning what we call a surcharge. You know, you've heard us talk about the $5 surcharge fee. We also have that.
And that's paid
as
to
far
Lee,
as-
that's paid to Henry County.
Yes, we've talked about that, how for each ton of garbage that we pay for, there's a $5 surcharge that Lee County reimburses Hendry County for. And that's addressed, the use of that is addressed in Hendry County's code. And it has to be used specifically to benefit the whole entire county. And it's to pay like the loan, because Hendry County had to get a loan from Lee County when all of this occurred in 1993, thereabouts, for the landfill, the closure of Pioneer, and then also the landfill, because they burn the solid waste and then they have to get rid of the ash. So there's a loan there, and also the closure. So the surcharge comes back to Hendry County and it's used. It's a very broad term. It's used for those purposes, but it also says that it can be used for the benefit of the whole entire county. So right now that's where we are, is we really want to get a handle on, our understanding is what has it been used for lately, and is recycling included in that? So we're waiting for that, because the $5 surcharge basically amounts to $30,000 to $35,000 a year on the Clewiston's behalf.
So, okay.
But you haven't been getting that.
No, sir, that's what we pay per ton. We pay a $5 surcharge that Lee County, in turn, they return back to Hendry County.
But we
Yes.
haven't been getting any of the money that was returned back to Henry County, right?
No.
Well, it goes in a special fund, and we also have a section, a copy that we're going to give to you of the county's code that talks about that it gets put in a special solid waste fund, not the regular MSBU, and what its uses are for.
So,
And
Sherry, from my understanding, those questions have been asked of the county.
they have been asked,
Okay,
and that's
and-
how far that we have
And Al, I
gotten.
know under your comments you were going to be discussing the garbage collection. Since we've kind of gone to that, go ahead and share with us what you had on your.
Well, we have requested that information from the county. We haven't got it back yet from them. So inside their code, it states that money has to be used, the $5 charge has to be a benefit to the entire county. And we've just asked what the money's been used for. We don't know if it's going to the landfill or whatnot. So as soon as we get that information, we'll bring it back to the board.
I know Sherry's is, as of even today, but just before I came in here, that she's still working on looking at all that information and the numbers. I know because we're still waiting on the county, there's not a recommendation yet. But
yet.
I know in speaking to you, that, and Sherry looking at the numbers, that what we originally thought would be an increase of, I think it was $11 that was suggested. We believe after the research and after looking at the information that we have, and Sherry deep diving into this whole issue, that is not going to be the case.
Correct.
Okay. But we can't make a final decision until we have all the information from the county.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
I'd also like to address one more thing, where it has to do with the recycling at the schools and everything. Yes, currently there are recycle bins at each of the schools, and that program is probably very, very successful. I don't know because I'm not involved with that. The county is. But I would like to make the point of saying that with them at the schools, they have just a select few people that either put that recyclable material in there or it doesn't go in there. So those people are trained, and only clean recyclables go in because they have a very tight control on what does or does not go in those bins. The city requested of the county to put some volunteer recycle bins out. There were 4 over off of Olympia, and we asked for 2 of them to be set, to help the people on the south side of 27 to get to a recyclable place. And we asked for a couple to be set over at the facility just off of Esperanza, the sub-office for the school. It was just a short term that those bins operated, and they let us know that they were picking them up and taking them back because people were not putting quote-unquote clean recyclables in it. And it only takes a small amount of garbage or construction debris or something else to be put in, a full recyclable bin for it to be scratched and said, garbage gone, and they won't accept it as recyclable. So when we get into the volunteer kind of recycling where bins are put out, there's a whole lot of other variables that need to be taken into consideration before it can be considered a success or a failure as it would apply here.
Well, the one thing that we've got to do, we've got to check with the state for one thing.
Yes, sir.
And if everything is going to be held with our feet to the fire, then we have to get ready to do it in the 2020, which is
not that far away.
No, I mean,
but
if they aren't going to hold us to it, then we haven't got to do it. But there's people that really want to recycle.
I absolutely agree with you. I hear a lot of questions, and a lot of people are wanting it, but the people that are asking for it are looking for curbside, residential home recyclable opportunities.
They want to do the same thing that we're doing, and recyclables one day, and like Kevin said, and trash the other day.
But that very option has been discussed, and it has been something that has been put on the table for consideration here from your staff and to the commission and city manager, that we could look to doing that. But
one day a week recyclables, one day a week trash pickup.
Yes.
Or one day a week for both.
That's correct. Reduce your garbage to one time and
What's
the
the cost of
recyclables
those
to one
cans?
time. We're looking at about $250,000, $250,000 to put a recyclable container at each of the properties in town. So again, it's an economical issue that we're looking at. We currently have, I think Lynn is looking into the possibility of a grant that we could for the purchase of these recyclable bins. However, we're still going to have to enter into some kind of an agreement that's going to have a financial impact on us as to how to get it from Clewiston, because we have the equipment to get it to the transfer station. But is the county, Hendry County or Lee County, prepared in how they're going to accept it at the transfer station and transport it to wherever it will be, and who will purchase it at that point, to go on to further markets.
Okay.
There's still some issues to be
Until
dealt
we
with.
hear back from you, that's one of the questions we need to make sure that Hendry County answers that for us.
Yes.
I got a question.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, Sean. I don't think we're this is just a general. I don't think we're reinventing recyclables. I mean,
No.
Palm Beach County's doing it. The county here is doing it, and other cities are doing it, right? So we don't need to reinvent it. I mean, it gets complicated at the level of what product goes in, is contaminated. But my thing is, if the county years ago committed to do this for us, and I know there's a cost involved that we have to pass, or maybe not. But I gotta think that if we do recycle our tonnage, and that's what we're getting hit right now with our fees, that we're having to pay Lee County to send our garbage to Fort Myers.
Yes.
There's got to be a way for us, and we got to ask all those questions that you said. You mentioned you got to all the players. You got to ask all the players the questions that you just mentioned. I agree, but we have killed recycling so many times here in the meetings where we've come up with, I don't want to say an excuse. I don't know if that's the right word, but we haven't pursued it, and I think it's for our benefit is to dig into it. Get the nuts and bolts, get all the pricing, get the cost. There's going to be a $250,000 investment on the cans, but in the long run, if we can get a grant, and that's going to be, you'll be able to pay that back at some point. I mean, I think there's a savings, but if recycling still exists out there and it's not being, just taken off the table where there's no value to it and nobody's doing it, I understand that, but so there's people doing it out there. We really need. I think we should look into it, and put the numbers together to it, and it may not be a bad idea for us to get in the recycle business, and if we can partner up with the county, and it seems like they're obligated to partner up with us
I-
at some degree.
I agree with you 100%. We should be in recycling here, and I think there's 99% of this community that is ready to do that. However, I do think there is a caveat in here that really needs to be determined. In what I have read and understood, I think Hendry County has got the obligation to help lead with the recycling in Clewiston. They take care of recycling in every part of Hendry County with recycling, except when it comes to the city of Clewiston, and then it stops. How come we have been segregated out of that operation? If there's an MSBU for picking up recyclables everywhere else, how come we weren't offered that opportunity so that they brought that recycling in here and dealt with it? Then we could drop our service to 1 day a week, reduce the time where trucks run, reduce how much we take to their transfer station, ultimately reducing maintenance costs and everything else. So there are some questions that have been there that have been asked that we just not coming through with answers.
Right. And so I'm looking forward to seeing those agreements that were agreed to in 1989 and 1993. Also know that staff is aware that on Wednesday, November the 14th, there's a reassessing recycling, balancing market challenges and citizen expectations with the Florida League of Cities. I know the staff received that invitation, so I'm hoping that staff will be there to be able to go and hear what the League of Cities is doing on their research regarding the reassessing of recycling. So,
Right.
okay.
Kevin, I didn't mean to hold you up so long. And your figures that you put on that Facebook page you go on were right, and I apologize for questioning and saying I had another figure in my head, but you were right. I was wrong.
And that's just, they're not my numbers, they're your numbers. My point is, everything that's said here is entirely accurate, almost. And there's one more document, there's a state law that says it is a goal, but it's a DEP rule. So if you ignore it, DEP is going to come down and say, where's your plan? So you don't have to have 80% in 2020, just like you don't have to have 75% today and by the end of this year. It was a staged goal. But my point is, and waste to energy, so yes, what goes in gets burnt, they get a credit for, and it generates revenue to Lee County. Lee County's revenues are down, but don't confuse Lee County's problems with our problems. Lee County doesn't make as much money off their revenue, off their recycling program. They have a huge recycling program. That's why they went to single stream recycling. That's why you can, and all the public can put single stream recycling in our dumpsters that are at the schools. We had the one taken out at CYDA because they were on Esperanza, the recycling bins. The school board had that taken out because they were putting all their trash next to it, and the school board doesn't have custodial staff there. And we're not in the garbage business. We were providing a site. The city's in a garbage business. The county's in a recycling and a garbage business. The school board's not. So we had those removed. There's none at the levee. There's none at the out at the health department. The only ones, there's none at John Boy. The county has a responsibility to take that recycling. Those recycling bins, when they get full, they go and empty them. They empty them 2 or 3 times a week. It doesn't matter who's putting the recycling in. It's now a county problem, and it reduces the city's expenses.
Is most of the recyclables coming from the schools?
I have no idea. Our kitchens and our school staff load that thing up on a regular basis. Everything that we have gets recycled. But there are also community recycling bins. My point is, we should be having those recycling bins, and we should demand that the county put more of them out about the city, and the city should provide those. And if they need to put a dumpster next to it, the city should be putting a dumpster next to it. But we should be encouraging it. It doesn't matter to us whether it gets burnt, whether it gets dumped in the landfill or anything else. It reduces the cost to the residents of Clewiston. Every pound that goes in that recycling bin reduces the cost to the residents of Clewiston.
Sure.
So the fact is, we've gone up 112% in our expenses, only of which 40% is Henry County's problem or Lee County's assessed rate, because because people aren't recycling because we're sending the wrong message. We're making it more and more difficult to recycle. So I just throw everything in the green can. Why should I bother packing my stuff up? Because it's just getting burnt. Because it saves me money.
Right.
It saves us money by putting in the recycling bin, and that's the message we ought to be sending out. It's going to save you money. And if we're not recycling, then we're just throwing that money away. If you don't want to consider the environmental benefit that recycling has, and extends the life of your landfill, which is usually expensive. You know, you negotiated that first part. We couldn't afford to close the landfill without Lee County, and Lee County couldn't build a landfill without us. It's a partnership. They're in lockstep with us. They have to do things. We need to hold their feet to the fire and make sure they're doing it right. But in the meantime, we ought to be sticking every piece of recycling we can in recycling bins. And it'll reduce our tonnage. And it's their problem after that. It's not our problem, it's the county's problem.
Kevin, I don't know if the citizens know or not. You probably know that there's 4 bins out of the transfer station for recycle.
But nobody goes into the recycle, yeah.
But you can go in there and use that. I mean, I don't know if people know that.
Yeah, but where do they go, Julio?
I'd like to make a comment.
Where do they go? Where?
Yes, there are 4 recycle bins at the transfer station, but most people are working during the day or at school when the transfer station is open. The transfer station closes at 4. They stop taking deliveries at 3:30. So if you don't have somebody that you can run there through the day, that can is useless to you.
Okay.
The other thing is that it's only open until noon on Saturday. So if you don't get out there first thing in the morning on Saturday, you can't use them. So yes, they're there.
But it's
and
there.
they're offered. Yes, I agree.
Right, but Sean, this is the
I
first
didn't
time
know
that
that.
you've brought it to our attention that the hours are not conducive to the community recycling there. So this is something, again, Al, that you need to add to that list in the conversation with the county. As was mentioned by Sean, the 2020 mandate that you guys talked to Lee County about, they didn't believe that was going to be a drop dead date, so to speak, but there was going to be other concessions made and changes, but also that the transfer station hours need to be looked at as well. And again, I'm hoping that the county will provide us with the requests that we've made and the answers to the questions that we've asked to make sure that as we look at our solid waste and the cost in there, that we're going to be taking advantage of everything that we can.
Sean, what would the cost be to us to put a dumpster next to those recycling bins? Minimal?
Minimal. We already have the
But if I
dumpsters.
remember correctly, the reason they pulled them was because of the couches and the TVs.
Well,
and everything
that's the
else
stuff that was stacked beside the bin.
At one point, we did have a dumpster next to some of them.
Yes, and
It
but
was
that's
just a big dump site.
Yeah, but that wasn't the issue that they pulled it. It was for the contamination that was in it. That said that they no longer could get the credit for the recyclable because now it was garbage. You know,
This was
but
the county?
the county made that decision, and it is a contractor that works for the county that picks it up. There's a recycle bin in the operations yard, the city's operations yard, that we use to put recyclables in. There are recyclable containers at each of the city's buildings that we pick up every week or two, depending upon the need, as well as we recycle steel and anything else we can. So, you know, we do have some operations. A lot of times people have called and said, hey, I got some recyclables. Where can I take it? I tell them, you could take it over here. You could take it to the transfer station. And if you can't get in there, you can come out to our yard. You can put it right here in this bin, too. So
This is the last I'll say of this, Mayor. That I use the bins out of the transfer station.
we see you go by.
And that lady gave me a class of what I could put in there. And once in a while, she'll go out there and make sure that I'm putting the right things in that she took, you know. So you just can't put anything you want in those
Well,
bins.
there is
mess
an
with Michelle.
educational process to it.
Yeah.
If you go to other communities, they have public service announcements on what can go in and what cannot go in. They do have the extended hours on the Saturdays, and a lot of communities you go, that's where you see everybody is at the recycling station as everybody's dumping their stuff, and they're committed to it. I think if we had the partnerships come together and do the education, that may help some of that up front, so that when we move towards the possibility of those individual, we're at a spot where it's going to be.
Just one other thing to keep in mind, that Henry County does provide a household hazardous waste recyclable facility out next to Bob Dean Supply in Hooker's Point. When we get those calls about that kind of stuff, we direct them in that right direction as well.
You said Bob Dean Supply?
Yes, sir.
County barn.
Yeah, it's the county road and bridge
Okay.
property. And, yeah, hazardous waste materials out there.
Okay.
But yes, we are definitely, we want to be there, but we're just facing some obstacles that, you know, we
Well,
need
we
to
need
have
to
some
talk to the
addressed.
county.
Right, and I think staff has
Yes.
been doing that, and that they're still waiting on some answers, but there's additional information after comments made tonight that we can make sure that we get answered, so that I can come back to, with a recommendation from the staff. Okay?
I got one thing. The bin at your yard, where does it go? Who picks it up?
The county has a recycle contractor that comes in every other week, every 2 weeks, and dumps the bin.
Okay.
And where it goes from there, I don't know.
So the county takes care of it.
But we pay to have those recyclables picked up.
Where?
We pay Lee County
No.
or Hendry County.
Out at the dump site? Is
At
that
my
where
at the
you're
city's
talking about?
operation charge, Public Works, we have a recycle bin in there that your city uses to recycle. And it's clean recyclables too.
Okay.
And you have to pay the county for getting it.
Because they have a contractor that they pay a
Do
contractor to
you
come
pay
pick
at
it
the
up.
school, Kevin?
The reason we don't pay at the school is we have to keep it open for public, We have to keep it open for public access. If we lock our recycling dumpsters, then we have to pay to have the recycling dumped. We keep them open, all of our gates are open where they're placed, so it's public access and we don't pay for our recycling.
And you have those on this end of the county also?
Behind Kane Field is the one I use. There's one at East Side, West Side, behind the cafeteria. Both of those are available for public use. Those are open, but there's no gates blocking them, and they're available for public use, and we don't pay for those.
What about the ones at the high school, Kevin?
I do not know. I don't believe I'm paying for any recycling.
Okay, because there's a couple
So,
of them out there.
How's that
Well,
gonna work with
I
the-
can tell you, I don't think that I'm in a minority, but I didn't know where all these were.
I agree. I didn't know the
I
county was
used to
offering it for.
recycle.
Right. I didn't know the school
All
was
the
offering
time.
it for the public to go up there and use
Well, I
either. It'd been
stopped.
easier for me to say, "Psst, take it over there."
But if
Are the ones at the high school open all the time? Or is
Well,
it-
You would have to come in that bus loop and have access, and we don't want anybody
Okay,
on that
all right.
campus, so.
Okay.
There is the mindset of a lot of people out there when school is out or during the summer, gates are closed. You're not allowed on school property. So
Okay.
that's
Well,
always been my mindset.
I think it was mentioned, and I think Christine mentioned it, that, there should be some PSAs, and we could send out some public education about where they are located right now, if those who want to voluntarily recycle, where those bins are all out throughout the city.
We could do something with
Massachusetts
that.
has an owl that all the kids know and talk about who's the recycle owl. And the first time I saw it, I was like, what is that? My grandson educated me. But all of the kids know it. When you go out into the mall, you go to a restaurant, you hear the kids talking about the recycling. They've educated them. They've gotten them. They've done a good marketing program. So
Okay, so we're going to get, Al, there's some questions that were brought up here tonight that we brought up with the county. We want answers to that. I would also like to see right now, as it is, public service announcements on recycling and recyclable locations that the community can go and take their recyclables to as of right now. Okay, and we know that you're going to come back with some recommendations after all those agreements are reviewed. Okay, all right,
this
that's
lady
it.
has a
thank you,
question.
Kevin.
Mayor, this lady has a question.
Okay, sure. If you'd like to come forward. If you'll state your name for the record, Louisa.
As a resident of Clewiston, I want to explain to you, not everybody living in this city, they are wealthy. Most of us, the people, live with a Social Security benefit that is not enough for living these days. So what happened is the person cannot afford it for the fees they're trying to charge on the garbage itself.
Okay. Thank you. Well, and that they haven't made a recommendation, and those are all some of the things that will be taken into account. I know that on utilities, the Salvation Army does help, and I think is it Alpi? Also help. So if you would like to contact our utilities department tomorrow, or if you'd like to write down your phone number, we can get you that information to help out.
Okay, because I'm disagree with those charges.
Okay,
and not approve those charges.
thank you.
Myself. I'm
Okay, we
speaking
haven't-
for
we haven't
myself,
made any
and I'm
changes.
speaking for this lady, friend of mine, that she cannot talk because language barrier.
Okay.
But I'm
All right.
speaking for myself
Okay.
and also
Luisa-
for her
okay.
and for the other resident that cannot appear today.
Sure, thank you so much. Lisa, if you'll put your phone number down, JD, if you can give her a pen,
Okay.
and Danny, if you'll have somebody from your office contact her with that information. Okay? All right, thank you so much. And is there anybody else, is this public comments? Anybody at this time can come forward? Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay.
Marcy Vandenschlager, Clewiston Police Department. Just wanted to invite the community to trunk or treat on Halloween. We'll be at the park, at Woodworks Park, from 6 to 8. So it's a free event to the kids. Come out. There'll be lots of candy, face painting, things like that.
Okay, and this is a partnership, I know it's some of the city departments,
Fire
fire
and
department,
EMS,
police
yes, ma'am.
department,
Yes, ma'am.
EMS. Okay, we appreciate that. From what time again?
6 to 8, Halloween.
6 to 8, okay.
Marcy, if you would you reach out to Pastor Smith at the First United Methodist Church? They're having one also.
Okay.
And I think they were going to encroach on
Okay.
some of the area that you were doing. So if you guys would, I also encouraged him to call you.
Okay.
And we'll have some of the students out there to help with some of the issues.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for reminding us of that. Sean, I know that there's a fall festival, if you'd like to just mention that real quick, please.
Thank you, Commissioner. Mayor Molly, Sean Scheffler, Public Works. With the autumn season coming upon us, Halloween's just around the corner where a lot of young people enjoy that time of year. Wanted to make sure that everybody knows that the City of Clewiston's Recreation Department will have their 10th annual Fall Festival. It's this Saturday, the 20th, starts at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and runs until 6. There's going to be at least 4 food trucks there, with the possibility of a 5th coming. We just had contact today from a local barbecue organization that we all know. I think it's the Edwards Barbecue, has asked for information about having a booth in there. There will be other booths. I think right now we're looking at maybe about 20 of these booths where there will be games and activities played, and free candy handed out. On the stage, there's going to be a costume contest for the children. There's going to be a pet costume for children where there will be prizes for the first place winner, as well as a raffle that will go off every half hour. Free raffle for the children and those that are participating during this event. We've got big plans, ideas, and we're hoping to see everybody there. That's this Saturday, 2 o'clock in the festival grounds, between 2 and 6 p.m.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Anybody else from the public? Okay. Al?
Yeah, I've got a few things, Mayor, I'd like to go over. First, before I forget, just wanted to give a Clewiston Drainage District a shout out. If you've noticed, they're cleaning some of our canals for us, doing a very good job. I think Ridgeville Construction's supposed to be coming in behind them, cleaning it up. So David Davis gave me a call and just let me know that it was it was in progress, and they'd have it cleaned up pretty soon. But it looks like they're doing a good job there. Got a couple issues I need to talk about. First is our legislative appropriation request this year that I'll plan on taking to the county and to our local legislators to ask for help. In front of you, you've got a copy of several of our asks. If there's 3 requests on here. 2 of the requests were asked last year. One was going to be our Ventura drainage project and repaving, sidewalks, lighting. And number 3 is 4 additional generators for our lift stations. As you're well aware, those went to the final hour last year and were taken out of the budget in the middle of the night, I think. So being that's a shovel-ready project, what we would like to do is go back with that Ventura request again, and then if we are denied in May for that, we have budgeted the paving money for Ventura, and at that point, at least get the paving done. We didn't want to we didn't want to go ahead and do the paving with our money that we have budgeted and then ask for the project in another year and have it come in and then destroy our road. 'Cause there's no way to do the drainage without tearing the road up.
Okay, and that's $1.4 million.
That's 1.4.
And the generators, the lift stations were 285,000.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
4 additional generators. And of course, number 1 on there is funding for our new bridge at the existing S169 location. When that comes out, that'll be a request of ours this year of $2 million for the bridge.
Al, I have a question. Our lobbyist, how much does he get involved with these items? And if you would,
Very.
If you would have him, he can send it to all the commission and the mayor. I'd like to know what he's working on. In our behalf. So I know that we renew that contract every year.
Mm-hmm.
And it costs us about 30,000, I think. Is that the right number?
Yeah, 25.
25 to 30. And in the past, I've been wishy-washy with that, with the lobbyists.
Right.
But what I would like for him to tell us, what is he working on our behalf? I mean, what has, maybe some of the things that he's accomplished within the last couple, year or so. So anyway, just to put a little something together for all of us, and maybe he can email it to us, send it to you, then you can forward it to us. But as far as if I continue committing to that expense, I really want to make sure that he's working in our behalf.
Yeah, I can.
I'm not
you.
saying he's not.
Sure,
but,
I understand.
But I really don't know much of what he's doing. Or maybe I don't remember, but maybe he can refresh my memory.
Yeah, he's offered to address the board in a meeting individually anytime. He's probably in town once a quarter.
Right. Will he be in town on Tuesday?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Right. I think that's what I had understood, that he was going to be here in town on Tuesday. So
yeah, he's extremely engaged with
right.
what's going on in Tallahassee, I can assure you. And he'll be, and if these are our requests, he's going to be wide open helping us with these.
And like Al mentioned,
I talked to him this morning.
Our request had gone through until the last minute, and they were vetoed, but they had made it through the whole process until the very 11th hour, so to speak. But he will be here on Tuesday. Al, if you can make sure if there's any of the commissioners who want to meet with him one-on-one, that you could set that up.
Sure.
Okay.
Let's see here.
There's one more item that's from last year that we continue to work with our legislators for the support of our partnership with Hendry County for the force main from Everglades and the expansion of the Clewiston wastewater facility. There's a price tag of $11.2 million on that one.
Correct.
But the county is taking the lead on this one.
County's taking the lead.
Okay.
The last thing I have on the agenda is a local resident, Mr. Steve Snyder, had approached me some time back, and I'm not sure if you remember where he lives, but if you take Royal Palm Avenue all the way down to the White Bridge and you cross the White Bridge, the field area that's there, you actually run into if you kept going. Mr. Snyder has one house, and another gentleman next to him has another house there that adjoins it looks like a park. Well, Steve had a request that he would like to buy that portion of the lot there, which we thought was a park. He's been taking care of it, and the neighbor, they've been taking care of it for probably 15 years or so. The city doesn't touch it anymore. It's manicured, mowed, edged, and Steve had made the request that he would like the city to either give it to him or purchase it. And so I got with Gary, and Gary did some research on it, and it turns out it's not a park. It's actually a right-of-way, an old right-of-way that was there from years and years ago. And so the request to the board is, would the board be interested in turning that property over to him or selling him the property? And he has no interest, either of the neighbors have no interest in building on the property. So it could be deed restricted where you could say, if we do give or sell this property to you, you will never be allowed to put a structure on it. You can sell it with the house, you can landscape it, you can take care of it, and you can pay tax on it, but you can never build on it. I don't think anybody would want to see two little small houses right there on that beautiful area at the end of Royal Palm. But so he's made that request that I wanted to bring to the board. See what your thoughts were on it.
I think in the past, we've had other folks come before the commission and ask for, if the city were not going to be using the property, what the process was. I know that there was a piece of property, I think at one time on Basilian Crescent, that we did something similar to that. We weren't going to be using it for the future, and so the city did abandon it. I mean, I would ask. I think in the past, not just that request, but there's been other requests. So I think that they need to be looked at, I guess, from a legal standpoint, and a recommendation made to the commission on properties that we're no longer using. What the process is. If our goal is to put it back on the tax rolls, like we did on that property on Basilian Crescent, then those are things that we need to look at. Again. I'm not going to make any recommendation just hearing about something at tonight's meeting. I think it needs to be thoughtfully looked at. But I would certainly like to see property back on the tax roll. But we've got to look at, for the entire community, what is in the best interest. We have done it in parcels before, or right-of-ways, or easements that we were no longer going to use. But, I think that we've got to look at it analytically.
Well,
So-
one thing I'd like to say, and for Steve, and I don't even know who lives in the other house, but the property's been kept up.
Absolutely.
It's been mowed.
Right.
It's been manicured.
Sure.
We haven't touched it. And it hasn't been touched previous to my 6 years. So you do have to give them credits for that.
The only thing I'm concerned about, and I really don't know how much about it, maybe Danny can help, or are we going to ever need that for infrastructure? And if we do, I mean, maybe not now, but if you ever want to use that, are they going to allow us to go underground there? Or is,
Everything I rerouted to water lines.
so there would never, you would never foresee us using that easement for any infrastructure?
Rerouted everything.
Even for, to accommodate anything in that area, no.
Right. And again, those are all things that, the infrastructure impacts. I mean, there's probably a lot of issues that we have to look at on any request like that, that we have in the past. But I'd like for the attorney to look at it and give us clear direction on what can be done. I mean, we've done it before. What are the next steps?
The answer to that question is abandonment of right-of-ways by statute. The property, once you abandon the public's rights, the property is divided one half to one side, one half to the other. It automatically happens. Now, some communities do have ordinances in place where there's useful properties that people request abandonment of, and they impose certain fees that can be related to the value of the property that's being abandoned. In other words, the public is being paid for giving up their rights in that property as a right-of-way. And that's something that you could look at with regard to abandonment of all rights-of-ways that are dedicated to the public.
Well, that's the discussion we had when Pete Diaz came in front of us, correct?
In the alleys?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So, I mean, when we look at abandoning right-of-ways, I think we need to have a set guideline on how the process is and what the city has to take into consideration for looking at the future. Again, I can't say yes or no. I'd like to look at all of this from in a document, written down, what needs to be considered. I know that we have done it in the past. We've looked at it for economic development. We've also looked at it for property development. So I would just like some clear, because those are two big parcels. It is a right-of-way. It's not just like an alley or an easement. And so I think we have to take that into consideration as we looked at it, because years ago there was we've had discussions on many fronts on roadways that we're not using and what to do with those on the right-of-ways. So I'd like to have some clear direction.
Well, I can tell you what the law is. I can't tell you what your policy should be.
No,
I can
but-
give you some alternatives, and so
that's
can your
exactly what
staff.
we should look at, because
Yeah.
it does have a future impact. Yeah, okay.
Mayor, how big of a property is that we would, do we know that? How big of a property that we would be abandoning? I know it's pretty big. Do we know how big the property?
I'm not sure what the
Could we
size
find out
of it is.
eventually how much, I mean, eventually what would we be abandoning? I mean, obviously they have some backyard. I'm sure they have a backyard and.
It's probably a half
To
acre.
cover the cost of you doing
It's
it.
a little small.
So this is just like an
Recommend
alley,
before the value of the
like we have
property.
talked about before, or if it's a swap, or if it's, a portion of the land that the city has a right of way through it, or an easement through it, that we've abandoned it for the development of the property. So I just want to, if there's a process, we need to probably go back through it and to make sure that this is a decision we want to make.
Yeah, we handle it the
And
same
taking
way.
into consideration that the property's already been maintained by the adjacent property owners for many years.
Well, we have an application process. I think the issue is, what is the monetary? And how does that
Well, Gary
figure in
says on the
there?
right of
So-
way, the abandoning of the right of way, there's no monetary, unless we do an ordinance.
You need to do an
Right.
ordinance.
So those are all things that we
setting
have to consider.
Yeah, we got enough ordinance.
Okay, well, so, okay, so if that can be looked at again, Al, if you'll make sure that since you've received the request, let's make sure that in talking with Gary and with Travis about the right-of-way abandonment and the process for that, and if there's a need for an ordinance in addressing that issue.
That's all I have, Mayor.
Gary, was there anything else before us tonight that you needed to bring up?
Yes, Mayor. At your last meeting, there was a gentleman here who was urging the city to modify your home occupation ordinances to allow internet-based businesses to occur in other residential districts than are currently allowed by your home occupation ordinance. And I'm inquiring whether or not the commission wants to go forward with an ordinance that achieves that.
I guess, I know that there's, our ordinance right now, and I'll go ahead and it's specific on what can and cannot be done. It's not just a blanket ordinance of allowing in the different residential neighborhoods for somebody to open up a business. So, I think that, I can't remember exact issue, but to modify the home occupation, I would have to meet the same standard that we already have in place. I mean, the concern has always been that somebody's going to open up a business in a residential neighborhood and have people coming in and out of their house. And so,
He's not asking that those standards be changed. Just currently, your ordinance does not allow it in certain residential districts. Our 1A and B, I don't believe it's allowed in, where it's allowed in your other residential districts. So the question is, why not allow it in all your residential districts? If it's an internet-based business where there are no activities coming to the house, there are no clients coming to the house, no one would even know the person was there, is essentially the argument the gentleman made. So why not allow it in all your residential districts?
So would this allow other bit like a trade company coming in? No, you won't.
No.
You can't run an electrical or a plumbing company out of there, right? It's just, I'm saying it's only,
If you have a business and the activity you're doing in your home is only internet,
right, I mean, it's specifically internet, it's not a plumber or a contractor, because.
It's internet.
I don't know if I want to put contractors all over the
It's
city.
internet.
Well, you
it
say
would
it's
only-
internet, but the next thing you got a plumbing
No.
company in there.
No.
Or,
No.
okay, all right.
New day and it's a new time. It's internet-based, and I think we need to look at allowing that. Right? That needs, it's
Because
common
it's in all
sense
the
that
other-
says
Not what he's asking.
extrapolate it over.
He's asking for you to take all the home occupations and move them to R1A. That's completely different.
I'm sorry, if you want to come up to speak at the podium, that would be fine.
Gary, is he wanting to provide service with servers? He didn't say.
And I really don't know.
And if I'm not
I
mistaken.
think he's an IT guy.
Right, but if I'm not mistaken, Travis, did you have any conversations with Mr. Potter?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, if you'd like to come before the podium and just tell us exactly what the conversations were and what exactly was the business. And that business is already allowed in some of the other zoning.
That is correct.
Is that
I spoke
correct?
with
Okay.
Mr. Potter, and what he indicated to me is he had a internet home office. I encouraged him to find another location that he could use that business address from. He said he could not. He worked for a government entity. He couldn't do that. And he wanted to take some tax credits for his home business, and he couldn't do that unless he had a business tax receipt. So I've talked to council about the home occupations. It is not allowed in R1A and B. So that's where I believe he came to the commission asking, would we allow some type of, or modify the code to have some type of internet-only based business? I couldn't see the harm in it as long as it did. Me personally, I've talked to council, as long as it was limited to that. I don't know what language we could put in there, what safeguards we could put in there, where it was simply something that could not be, that you couldn't discern there was a business there.
Right. Is that
But
the
that
same
was his ask.
Is that the same safeguard that we have on the other residential neighborhoods?
It is, but I think the intent of the code was to keep all of that out of A and B.
Okay.
And to explain to the public, A and B is the larger lots, the larger areas, the districts that have more land, more larger houses typically. They did not want to see those home businesses there. So I think that's the spirit of the ordinance, was to keep all of that out. I
Okay.
think the times have changed a little bit with this internet-based. A lot of people are running things from home. I think it's doable. There's probably something there you could look at, but it would have to be a discussion where you wouldn't be bringing those things that would be allowed in, say, the R1C and R2 and R3 into that area, but maybe to allow something that couldn't be identified from home. You had no customers. You received no significant deliveries, I would say.
Be solely IT.
Right. You couldn't advertise it similar to some of the other ones, but it would have to be crafted in a way that did not take away from those zoning districts when they bought their houses that thought that I'll never have a home business next to me.
Okay.
And it's a selling point, I would say. I'd mention that too, that some people decide to purchase in different areas because they want a home occupation. So I think it just, from what Mr. Potter indicated to me in our discussion, this was something that was going to be strictly at a home office. No customers.
But there would be no foot traffic, no traffic.
That
in
was
and
my
out.
understanding. It was a very brief
Yeah, me too.
conversation. He indicated during that conversation was strictly internet-based is what he kept referring to.
Can we put this on with the same workshop as the storm panels and notify everyone in that district that's
Well, I think
on
you
that
would
way?
do that. We wouldn't spend the money to do that and do a public advertising to each individual property owner. I mean, we could put an ad, during planning and zoning board or something like that. We could bring that up.
Well, I think just they need to be notified that it's
You
going
wanna
to change
list-
and let them have a
Right. I
say
think
of an
just in
overall.
your discussion, it's if you decided to have staff go and make the ordinance and take it to planning and zoning, then yes, we would need to notify those folks that there was a possibility of it changing. Right now, I think what council's asking is, do you want them to move forward with researching this more and actually coming up with a
For an IT-based purpose.
yeah, I'm
He
sure
was
it's
not
someone
talking
else.
about the whole gamut being extrapolated over to.
No, I don't, and I wouldn't
what
recommend
Gary
that.
is saying is single sole IT-based.
Correct. It would have to be something new added to the language to that, not to allow those, as the mayor
Right.
was saying, not bring those home occupations into those restricted areas.
No.
Okay, and that's exactly what Gary was saying.
Yeah, it would have to be some kind of hybrid.
It's got to be IT. It can't be any foot traffic. It can't, you know.
There may be other ordinances already out there that we could look at, but without your instruction to move forward, if that's what you'd like us to do, staff could look forward just to get that information and see if that's a possibility.
That's where it starts.
I mean,
Thank
the
you.
request was made for us to look into it. You know, I think we should look at it, and and then make the decision from what staff recommends. But certainly, I think from what I'm hearing here is nobody wants to see a neighborhood with home occupations that would impact the neighborhood into commercial business sections. So it's only for non-foot traffic, and it's internet-based only.
Yeah, not even to car traffic.
And I think that when you look at that, is you're also looking at the enforcement of that. So those are all things for us to consider. And how do you say if it's an internet business right now and it changes in the future? I know annually that there has to be probably some kind of renewal or check, but again, opening up that door without guidelines and enforcement of it. It would, I think, in my opinion, devalue neighborhoods. Okay.
Also, as Commissioner Rodriguez said on another subject, let's not reinvent the wheel. If you give us permission to go out and look, if that's what you like, let us bring it back to the manager and see if there's other cities that went through this.
Okay.
Well, it would seem like he'd be here tonight if he was really interested.
Well, I don't believe anybody said anything that this was going to be back on the discussion.
Well,
No, in fact, my conversation with him was to let him know that the staff was looking into it. And,
okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't lead him to believe that he would need to be here tonight.
Did he provide you with how he's going to provide service?
No. The conversation was not that in depth.
Okay.
You don't want a 60-foot tower stuck in his yard.
Those are things that we need to look at.
That's what they're popping up around. I've had those companies approach me. They want to put them throughout the city. They're like 60 to 90-foot towers.
Yeah, so
I
think we should be open to it, but proceed slowly.
Okay. All right.
And
Jerry?
I believe that's what council was saying.
Right. Jerry, did you have a comment on this or something else?
My former residence, we lived in a planned development neighborhood, and this gentleman had set up an internet business, kind of closed in his garage. He didn't get permits, but he didn't have any foot traffic. But there was a constant parade of UPS trucks pulling up, giving two honks. Here I am. FedEx trucks coming in, post office coming in with overnight delivery. There was a constant parade of traffic in a neighborhood where a lot of children were playing. And they're going to dart out in the street and dogs and stuff. An end was finally put to that, but I would urge y'all to tread carefully on this because this business, I'm not sure what the gentleman's doing. He lived some distance from me, and it didn't bother me, but it did the neighbors in the immediate vicinity simply from the volume of UPS, FedEx, and overnight deliveries. It was a constant parade of trucks, and the UPS in where I live, they gave two beeps on the horn, and of course people would look out, what the heck is going on?
Okay.
And the guy had no foot traffic, but there were deliveries coming and going, which kind of caused a problem.
And
I think the city finally shut the guy down because he didn't have permits, but it was a long, drawn-out battle.
If I remember, it was internet-based, but it's a consulting business. I don't know all the difference between consulting and
I don't either, but once you open that,
internet-based, right?
it's kind of like that little can you had when you were a kid that you unscrewed the top and all these springs spring out. Once you get the top off, you never get them back in.
But and just to remind everybody that we do have home occupations that are allowed in other zoning districts. So there are already home occupations within the city. Have we had complaints about those home occupations that you know of that are already existing in the city? Home occupations, have we had any complaints from anybody that's in a residential neighborhood that has?
I would say I have not been to any of our legally permitted ones, but I have been to.
But complaints, I'm sorry. Have we received any complaints that you know of any of the current home occupations?
I have been called to places that are not permitted.
Okay.
But would be permitted had they gone through the proper channels.
Okay.
And had to tell them that they could not do without a BTR and how to get their BTR.
I think all that needs to be taken into consideration as well.
Yeah, this gentleman may not have a problem, but the next one that comes behind him, or the lady that comes behind him, they could be a problem. So,
All right.
thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I think that, Gary, you've heard a lot tonight, and there's, there is a request, but there's a lot of considerations to look at. Specifically, I would ask that staff contact him to make sure exactly what the request was. I know he made the request, but let's just verify exactly what it is that his request for home occupation is. Okay? If that hasn't been done already. Okay? All right. Scott. I'm sorry, Gary, was that the only one you had?
Yes, it
for
is.
us? Okay. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't have anything to
Okay, I
report.
didn't have any.
You have an update? You have an update
Oh, you
on
had
the
a question
water
for
line?
me. What's that?
You have an update on the water line for Hampton?
Sure. The Block 201 waterline relocation project is finishing up tomorrow. They're going to install the valve in the morning, and then they just have to pave over that patch in the alley, and they'll be finished. So we
are
should
you-
be able to look forward to a final pay request consideration next meeting.
Okay, so you're saying that all that will be done tomorrow, or the valve will be done tomorrow?
The valve's installed tomorrow. The pavement patch will be done, provided there's pavement being made tomorrow that they can get.
Okay.
So they think they can get the pavement patch done, but this week it'll be finished for certain.
Okay, I know that I wrote some of the patches that they were done. Has you guys, before that comes before us, I want to make sure that they were done in accordance with the requirements of that job, because some of them look really, in my opinion, not acceptable.
I'd like to ride those with you and
Okay.
see what your concerns are.
Okay, all right.
Scott, while you're up there, that was a 3-month contract. Is that right or wrong?
Yeah, they've gone way beyond the contract. The push was to get the water line in for the Hampton Inn, and we got that done successfully. And then
In the
summer,
3-month period.
then the summer rains came, and everything kind of slowed down from there.
So the answer is no.
So
It
I'm
wasn't
not-
done within the 3
it'll-
months.
They did not get it done within 3 months.
So it was done in 4 months?
Well, they're just finished today, so it's like
So it's 9 months.
9 months.
I'd like to make the whole board aware that any contract, Mr. Attorney, that we have with different people, that when we have a 3-month contract, that there be some skin in the game once we go past 3 months. That contractor's got skin in the game, in other words. This is unacceptable to me. Even though I've got the letter that you wrote, I've talked to Danny at length, and if it's private business, there's no way that it goes 9 months. If it's your business, it doesn't go 9 months. If it's my business, it doesn't go 9 months. Especially when I was in business, you didn't, if you were going to finish in 3 months, you were going to finish in 3 months. We've got to be really the same way, and they've got to do the work in a timely manner and to professional standards. And it's like Molly is saying, I rode those same roads and everything yesterday. No, Friday. And there's some of them I wasn't pleased with, and I'm saying, really, is this what we're going to accept? And I'm glad you wrote them, Molly, and you're going to write them with Scott.
Well, I'd like Scott to write them with the staff and with the city manager, because, ultimately, this project has gone way too long. We've had that experience on other projects that we've allowed, for whatever reason, whether it's rain or whether it's something else, to go on, in my opinion, way too long. And so, Al, that's not it's not something that I want to make sure that we do not see again. And Scott, the same thing for you guys as a city engineer. The length of delays that we've seen on the Pasadena project, on this project, I don't know where the bridge project is at right now. The delays are just not acceptable. And now I'm going to hold you responsible for that. These projects cannot continue like this. This is, whatever projects we have out right now, we cannot continue to allow the excuses to come in to waylay a contract that goes on from, instead of a 30-day or even a 90-day contract that goes for 9 months. It's just not acceptable. Sure.
Can I interject? I know by charter the engineers work for the board. And I think that should be changed, and the engineers work for the county manager. I don't see the reason for the engineers to work for the board.
Right, but there's a process that the commission has a city manager that's responsible for handling everything on a day-to-day basis. Once this commission makes a decision, I don't meet with the engineer. The city manager and the staff meet with the engineer.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. Is the engineers work for the board and the attorney works for the board. Is that right? We fire them.
Correct.
Okay.
But we also give direction on a day-to-day basis to the city manager to make sure that projects are completed, that things are done. We're not out there looking at everything on a day-to-day basis. The only reason why I noticed the way the parking looked is that I rode by there this weekend and thought, I cannot believe that we're going to accept a patch job like this. But I'm not the expert. Our engineer's the expert. And he has to make the recommendations to the city manager and the staff and look at it and come back to us and say.
Okay, you just heard him say they were fine with him.
Well, and I'm going to go back there and show him my concern, but I don't believe that I'm the one that should be doing that. This is not our responsibility. We're not running the city on a day-to-day basis.
I agree. And that's why I'm saying that the engineers should work for the city manager.
Okay. Well,
and it's just something to think about. I mean, Sean works for them, and it's just something I don't want them working for me. I don't want to think I have to check behind the engineers.
So, and that is, again, it's not our responsibility on a day-to-day basis. But there are some, those are the charter issues. I know that we talked back in February of reviewing the charter, we think in 2013, we looked at all the code of ordinances of the city of Clewiston. It was reviewed by staff and the attorney at that time. Every 5 years, I think it should be looked at again. So as we look at this, it's just not a charter that needs to be reviewed, but our codes that need to be reviewed every so often. The last charter change, I believe, was in 2012. Mm-hmm. So, so those are some of the things that need to be looked at. Saying all that, I think, Scott, that from our perspective that this project has taken on too long. Not only this one, but other ones in the past. And that time delay is just, in my opinion, not acceptable. I will send you a picture of what I saw and have you go look at it. I'll give it to the city manager and go from there with it, so y'all can go check it out.
All right, thank you. I hear your comments about the time the project took, and that won't happen again. We'll do it differently next time.
Anything else? Okay, Mr. Rowland?
I'm good.
Did you have any? I know that someone mentioned to me today, and I'm just going to ask you since you're here, about the impact of the hurricane on a police department in the Panhandle. If you could just share with the public more about that.
The Mexico Beach Police Department was decimated. And every one of those officers that works at that department lost their homes. And they're still at work. And their comment to the news, who wanted to have it go a different way, was, we took an oath to serve and protect. And we are not going to leave just because things have gotten tough. So that resonated with my students. I was very glad that it did. We are collecting things for the officers, personal items, wipes, water, energy bars, those kind of things. They've gotten some used patrol cars from other agencies that were getting their new cars for their budget time. And they're setting up their homes, these guys and gals, in that patrol car. And they're committed to staying. I talked to Chief today. I was going to bend the principal's arm and tell him he needed to use his pickup truck and his trailer to get him up there. I talked to the chief. He said they would use the trailer and get it up there this weekend, that he wasn't going to be able to assign any employees to stay and help, but that they would at least do that. So we're accepting donations. I think it's the right thing to do. I know Travis is here, Kevin's here, Jimmy, a number of people, Marcy, we remember when we remember Irma, and 2 days in, those dry socks were very important. So we've put it out on Facebook. We've put some flyers out of what we're accepting. We will pack on Saturday morning, and we'll get all the items up there. The other thing I would like for you to do is write a note. Do you remember the little notes that came and what a difference it made when you thought you didn't have anything left in the gas tank and you thought nobody understood out there? So if you can put a little note in there of encouragement for those men and women, they're going to share it with the fire department also. I think they will understand where America's sweetest town is.
Okay. And you need all that before Saturday, right?
Yes,
Friday?
ma'am.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
And we'll come pick up.
Okay.
Do we pack the stuff?
We're going to pack the trailer.
Yeah,
And so what they'll do is divvy it out when they get
Yeah,
up there.
your students are going to be doing
The packing,
but
yes.
there's also, if anybody wants to volunteer, they can just get a hold of you and.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right. Okay, all right. Anything else?
No,
Okay.
thank you.
Mr. Rodriguez?
Yeah, got a couple of things. Sean, I was in front of the Clewiston Inn, the palm trees. There's something wrong with the sprinkler, the water system there. There's water going into the 27th, the gutter, so I don't know if it's just a timer issue or what, but all those trees in front of the, along, even on the other side of my business there, that water is overflowing constantly and running constantly, and it's running into the highway, so something it's probably something, just a timer issue, probably. It's no big deal.
Berm has washed them.
And I think, Marcy, this is for you, for the police department. I've been in, I go to the restaurant late after closing, and there's been 2 occasions where I've had homeless people come and knock on my door. Last night, there was a gentleman and a lady there that were approaching my door there. Luckily, my father-in-law was, and they end up, they ended up sitting there on my pylon sign. They sat there. I didn't call the police because I didn't think they were going to bother anybody, but they sat there. And then one guy knocked on the door. He wanted me to give him something to drink. And I have to say I was dumb enough, and I did give him something to drink, but I probably shouldn't have. The guy could have probably cut me to pieces. But I think we still have a tremendous amount of homeless problem in our city. Okay. And I don't know if we're addressing that on a daily basis, or we, talking to the officers to look out for this, because I'm not saying these people are dangerous, but they could be. And I've been here all my life, and I've never seen it as bad as it is today. And I know homeless is not a crime, mm-hmm. but I know that a lot of homeless people out there are they can cause a little bit of problems too. So
Okay.
But just are you aware of?
Yes, sir, we are. We're actually tracking them. Our officers are going out a lot and doing FIs on them so that we can identify them, figure out who they are, and sometimes we're successful in connecting them to services. Centers for Progress and Excellence is here in the city of Clewiston and also in LaBelle, and they have case management services that we've successfully connected a few of them to. Now, that being said, people have to want to go, and like you said, if they're not committing a crime, it can sometimes be a situation where we just encourage them, try to keep track of them, and try to get them there if we can.
But if there is a crime, I mean, we follow the whole due
Oh,
process or
absolutely.
everything?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. And certainly call us because that helps us figure out who they are in case we haven't made contact with those folks yet.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure.
And my last thing, Travis, if you would give us an update on some of the projects. I'd like to know what the Hampton, where the Hampton is. I know that I'm sure you do regular inspections on them and see what kind of
Almost daily.
opening date, kind of target dates, and what are we gonna the dealership, when are they gonna start their their remodeling, and some of the other projects that maybe that we're not up to speed on. Maybe you can. I know you've done that. I asked you a few months ago to do it again.
Yeah, well,
can you update us just briefly on what's going on?
Not much for the Hampton or the car lot here. They've done some work, preliminary exploration, I think, of the soil. It was a well truck I was told was over there doing some samples, so that's encouraging. They're doing something. Hampton, it's dragging behind. It's not. I would go as far as say they're officially not on schedule, but looking at the tradesmen that are there, there's I'm getting 6 or 8 tradesmen a day there working. That's going to really slow that project down. I expect to see 20 or 30 workers daily there, and we're just not seeing it. The Med Express, you should by the end of the week see landscaping going in. For those of you in the contract world, yes, they put the windows in last. That's typically one of the first things we do, but they had a malfunction with the delivery, so it's looking better. That parking lot will be completely repaved. I'm talking about the entire parking lot resealed. I shouldn't have said repaved. They're talking about repaving it. But right now, they are looking at resealing it because they got to fix some of the striping problem in there. If you went to the Save-A-Lot or Beef O'Brady's, it could be done better, and we're encouraging them now to do it better, actually requiring them to do it better. So landscaping should go in this week for that, so that'll change a little bit of the face on 27 there. The sign at that same location, can fall in disrepair, I think, for quite a few years. Not as much as they were a code violation, but you can see the blankness of them. They're actually going to replace that sign with a new sign now. So at that entrance of that going in there, that'd be a really nice look. And you see the barriers come up from the Dunkin' Donuts. So lots of little projects. We're finally
Got all that mess from where they put the sidewalk in by Dunkin', so that whole area with the construction.
It is.
and
I try to
everything.
tell folks there's always got to be destruction before construction,
Right.
especially these infill lots. It's happening though. I think everyone will be a lot happier with the investment that they've made there. Once it's up, it all looks fresh. Sidewalks are going in there along Burner now, made ready for Danny's line. So things are happening.
Now that Commissioner Rodriguez has asked that, I know that there's several multifamily properties or buildings that are going up. Can you give us an update on those?
Going one on the north side is going, but very slow. I'm hoping and encouraging it. They hit a standstill as well. I think has really slowed down, but we're hoping in the next couple of months to see that one finished up. There's some on Central Avenue that really picked up and going pretty fast.
Go ahead.
So they should be ready for drywall really soon. They're dried in. That's really all the new projects I can think of.
What about the residential homes that have?
Residential has taken off. Pools surprisingly have taken off. We had probably 4 pools in the last 6 or 8 months, and for Clewiston, that's quite a few. So I always try to use that as kind of a barometer of how the economy is doing. First thing I cut at home is always recreation when it's time to cut back, whether it's going to the movies or whatever. Certainly putting in a pool would be I think something that's really an investment in your home and a recreation side. So that encourages lots of remodels, not just a re-roofs, but lots of remodels and people putting money into their home. Really, I think it's encouraging. So I hope it keeps up.
I got one more question.
Sure.
Thank you, Travis. Debbie, my question is for you. I had some complaints from the folks on Gulfview, I think it is, Gulfview, about the senior citizen complex, about the outside maintenance of that property. Have you been by there lately, or could you go by there? You said there's mattresses sitting out there in the yard, and the Gulfview, the people that live behind the senior.
The Goodwill or the Hendry County Housing
I think
Authority?
if
The
she
senior
can look
housing?
at both, because they're right next to each other, so I'm not sure But I think it was more of maybe the last one that went in, the senior citizen.
Yeah, I've had to contact them a couple of times for putting mattresses, as you say, out beyond their boarded wall, and then also because of their grass, they do
They
let
put
it
in
over
like
there.
swimming pools and stuff like that for little kiddie pools. Have you seen that?
I haven't
That's
seen
the thing they were
swimming
saying. I know
pools
they're
out
not
there, no,
supposed to
because
be little
I mean they're
kid-
allowed 2-week to 3-week visitation
Oh,
with
okay.
grandchildren and
And they can
children
put
there.
pools out
Mhm.
there? Okay.
But they're not permanent. They do have a time frame of how long the
So
kids
you
can
do
be there.
go by there on occasion?
Oh,
or
yes,
would
absolutely.
you go by there? Because I just got recently a complaint of a resident that said that there was mattresses outside in the
Yes,
yard. And
Sean has complained about the dump being outside, and I've made contact with the office
such
on
a
a couple
nice
occasions.
facility that I think we got to keep the standards up there so people, have to
Absolutely,
keep,
I agree.
Keep the property, looking attractive for the people that live behind them.
I definitely agree, and we'll
Okay.
continue to do so, yes,
Okay,
sir.
appreciate it. That's all I have, man. Thank you.
All right.
No,
Okay. All right. Anything else before the commission? Meeting adjourned.
So, no more.